was planning on just emceeing tonight, just kind of hanging out, introducing the acts, but I still felt like trying to write one poem, if that's okay. And I tried to make this one a little bit different because a lot of my poems are very intense, right? Like, oh, you suck, like, come to Jesus, and like, you can't open with that, right? It's just like, and buzzkill. So, I thought I would try to write like a more happy, fun intro poem, but again, I'm also really nervous. It's my first time doing this poem, so we'll just see how it goes and we'll go from there. Does that sound good? Let's do it. So this poem is called The Greatest Artist of All Time, okay? And not talking about me, that's awkward, okay? A guy came up to me the other night, right? And he was like, who's your favorite artist? And like most people do when they ask you that, he didn't really want to listen to what my answer was. And he continued about his struggle to recognize who he said was the greatest of all time. He said, I mean, is it Shakespeare? Is it Frost? Is it Picasso, Michelangelo? Is it Rembrandt, Beethoven, Michael Jackson, Justin Bieber? Okay, he didn't really say that. That part was me. I'm a fan. What can I say? Bieber fever. But as he said, is it whoever's lyrically the strongest? Is it whoever's lived the longest? And he went on and on and on about who he thought was the greatest, now realizing even his infrastructure to answer that question was misled and outdated. So finally, I kindly smiled and said, okay, sir, you asked me who is the greatest of all time. Now, you tried to share yours, so let me share mine. Now, see, there's no debate about who is the greatest, because all those other artists you mentioned, yeah, the greatest made them. And see, this artist, he's a beast, man, a lion, the name above names. You don't even realize it, but you encounter his art every day. And he deserves all the acclaim, he deserves all of the fame because all other artists fade away, but he remains. Oh, by the way, his name is God. Yahweh, creator, your maker. He's infinitely creative, sir. There is no one greater. And I can tell it looks like you're starting to get mad at me, but don't be jealous just because your favorite artist might bend words, and my favorite artist bends galaxies. See, in the palm of his hand, he holds all the sand, the author of life, when he whispered, let us make man. I mean, what if you knew that you are God's poetry? You were created because someone else was creative. See, long ago, he picked up his eternal paintbrush, dipped it in his glory, placed you in his story, and said, they will live for me. And I know it sounds outlandish, but we're not the product of random chances. In fact, we're not even the vine. We're actually the branches. In the same way, no, we're not the artist. We're actually the canvas. Because in an instant, God started to make art, shaped you uniquely and beautiful individual from the start. And he touched the canvas of flesh and said, this one is better than the rest. I'll give them so much of my image, so even when they're hot off the press, they'll look so much like me, you can still see the steam of my breath. And so he crafted and he made every arm and leg, ligaments, tendons, muscles, blood vessels, veins, arteries. He said, they're going to have a part of me. And it was right about then the guy butted back in and said, I'm filthy. God won't use me, will he? And I said, that's the greatest part about God. Even if we've messed up, he can still use us. Even though other artists, once they have broken equipment, they start to make excuses. But God instead doesn't refuse us, and neither does he accuse us. He redeems us in Jesus. Promises never to lose us. So stop saying that you're dirt. Stop saying you're scum of the earth. You ought to be careful about how you talk about someone else's work. Because if you've trusted in Jesus, man, you can stop saying you're filthy. All that is anyways is just pride clothed in false humility. I mean, if only we believe that we truthfully are created in his likeness, then we'd stop saying we're messed up, guilty, wretched, filthy, but instead knowing if we've trusted Jesus, we're righteous. I mean, don't you know you're drawn to repentance because of his kindness? So how dare you call yourself worthless when he says you're priceless? But see, the best part about God is that since God is ultimately for God, he'll get glory out of you whether you like it or not. Because even temple ruins point to an architect, even if the temple is shot. And all I'm saying is that he's behind it all. So why do we insist on giving him no glory at all? I mean, he's the one that gave Van Gogh the imagination that changed the face of painting. Tell me, who else allowed Mozart to start composing at age 5 without formal training? He's the one that gave Beethoven the hands that played Beauty on the Keys. For Pete's sake, he made Stevie Wonder one of the best musicians of our time, and he couldn't even see. And that's why in the same way that our lives are borrowed time, this poem is borrowed lines, because the most ridiculous statement I could ever say is that this poem is mine. Because we're not self-sustaining. No, we're not self-creating. Technically, nothing we do is original. We're just imitating, and that's not a diss. All I'm trying to say is this: even our own creativity is nothing more than an outflow of His. But hey, I've said enough. I'll end with this. You know that quote about giving credit where credit is due? Well, if that's true, I think it's time we give God His rightful credit too. Because He's the type of artist in the business of making old things new. And here's the truth: He's not through with making a masterpiece of you.